The Karate Kid became one of the biggest hits of the decade, launched a franchise that's still going strong 40 years later, and created moments that are burned into our cultural memory forever. But here's what they don't want you to know. The movie you love almost didn't happen. And today we're diving into 20 behind-the-scenes facts about The Karate Kid that will change how you watch this movie forever. Number 1. John Avildsen, the Oscar-winning director of Rocky, wasn't the first choice to helm The Karate Kid, and honestly, he almost walked away before shooting a single frame. The studio originally wanted a completely different tone for the movie, more comedy, less heart. Avildsen had just come off Rocky and saw the potential for something deeper, something that could capture that same underdog magic. The tension got so bad during pre-production that Avildsen threatened to leave the project entirely. He'd won an Academy Award for making audiences believe in Rocky Balboa, and he wasn't about to turn this into some cheap teenage comedy. The producers eventually backed down, letting Avildsen craft the film his way. Good thing they did, because Avildsen's vision turned a modest budget film into a box office phenomenon that made over $130 million worldwide. In today's money, we're talking roughly $400 million. Not bad for a movie that the studio almost turned into a laugh track sitcom. Number 2.
I've just turned 30, so that's the amazing thing.
When you watch Daniel LaRusso get pushed around by high school bullies, you're probably thinking, poor kid, except Ralph Macchio wasn't exactly a kid. He was 22 years old when they started filming, 22. Meanwhile, his character is supposed to be 16, maybe 17 at most. The age gap was so significant that the makeup department had to work overtime to make Macchio look younger. They'd style his hair differently, use specific lighting, and dress him in clothes that would make him appear more teenage appropriate. But here's the kicker, it worked perfectly. Macchio had this eternally youthful face that let him pull off playing teenagers well into his 20s. The guy looked like he was barely old enough to shave, which was both a blessing for his role and probably incredibly frustrating when trying to get into bars. The production actually considered younger actors initially, but Macchio's performance in The Outsiders caught Avildsen's eye. The director realized that having a slightly older, more experienced actor would bring maturity to the role without sacrificing the vulnerability Daniel needed. Number 3. Pat Morita's portrayal of Mr. Miyagi is legendary. That wise, patient mentor with a thick Japanese accent became the heart of the entire franchise. There's just one hilarious problem with this. Pat Morita didn't actually have that accent in real life. Noriyuki Pat Morita was born in California and grew up speaking perfect, unaccented English before landing the role that would define his career. He was a stand-up comedian known for doing impressions. The man performed alongside the Rat Pack in Las Vegas nightclubs. His natural speaking voice was pure American. When Morita auditioned for The Karate Kid, he made a calculated decision. He knew the character needed authenticity, needed to feel genuinely Japanese, so he created this entire persona. The accent, the mannerisms, the way Miyagi spoke, and that distinctive broken English pattern, all carefully crafted performance choices. The crazy part, Morita's performance was so convincing that he earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He lost to Hein Nor for The Killing Fields, but the nomination itself was incredible. Number 4. William Zabka and the Cobra Kai crew were supposed to be your typical 80s movie bullies, mean, sure, but cartoonish. Instead, they became genuinely terrifying. And that wasn't in the script. Zabka had trained in martial arts since childhood and brought real intensity to Johnny Lawrence. But here's what most people don't know. Zabka was actually a nice, soft-spoken guy who'd never played a villain before. The Karate Kid was his first film debut, his first movie, and he created one of cinema's most memorable antagonists. The production originally wanted the Cobra Kai students to be more overtly evil, almost like teenage gangsters. Zabka pushed back. He wanted Johnny to be a real person, someone who genuinely believed in his sensei's teachings. That nuance made Johnny Lawrence infinitely more interesting and, ironically, more threatening. Speaking of Cobra Kai, if you love the original movie, you need to check out the Netflix series Cobra Kai. The show picks up 33 years after the tournament and follows Johnny and Daniel as adults, reigniting their rivalry in incredible ways. 6 seasons later, it just wrapped up in February 2025. Have you watched it? Let me know in the comments what you think about the series. Number 5.
Wax on, right the hand to make a suckle. Wax off, left hand suckle.
Everyone knows the iconic training sequence. Daniel thinks he's just doing Mr. Miyagi's chores, getting exploited for free labor, until Miyagi reveals the muscle memory he's been building. Beautiful moment, right? Heartwarming teacher-student breakthrough. Yeah, except Ralph Macchio actually had to do those movements for hours, day after day. The repetitive motion wasn't just acting, it was physically exhausting work that left Macchio sore, frustrated, and questioning whether this movie was worth it. The production filmed those training sequences over multiple days, and Avildsen was a perfectionist. He wanted the movements to look natural, instinctive, which meant hundreds of takes. Macchio's arms were genuinely tired when Daniel finally exploded at Miyagi in that confrontation scene. That exhaustion you see, that's real. Morita, meanwhile, had to maintain perfect patience and calm throughout these scenes, even when the production was running behind schedule or the California heat became unbearable. The dynamic between them worked because both actors were actually pushing through genuine discomfort. Number 6.
3 points wins. Will the contestants please come to the ring?
That climactic all-valley karate tournament that everything builds toward nearly derailed the entire production. The logistics were a nightmare. First, they needed a venue that looked like a real tournament arena. They settled on a high school gymnasium in Los Angeles, but could only secure it for a limited number of days. This meant filming dozens of fight sequences, crowd reactions, and dramatic moments under an impossibly tight schedule. Second, they needed extras. Hundreds of extras to fill those bleachers and make the tournament feel important. But extras are expensive, and the budget was already stretched thin. The solution? They got creative with camera angles and repositioned the same groups of people throughout filming. If you watch carefully, you'll spot the same faces in different parts of the arena. Third, and this is where it gets really interesting, they needed fighters who could actually perform martial arts on camera, not just the main characters, but all those background competitors Daniel faces before reaching Johnny in the finals. The production held open casting calls specifically for martial artists in the LA area. Some of the guys you see competing are legitimate black belts who answered an ad in the paper. One of them, a karate instructor, accidentally hit Macchio too hard during their bout and nearly broke his nose. Hold on, before we reveal what almost killed Ralph Macchio on set, let me ask you something. Are you enjoying these behind-the-scenes secrets? If you want more content like this, breaking down your favorite movies and uncovering the truth behind Hollywood's biggest moments, hit that subscribe button right now. Number 7. Remember those picturesque beach training scenes where Daniel and Mr. Miyagi bond while practicing karate by the ocean? Beautiful cinematography, right? Peaceful California coastline, waves crashing, very zen. Ralph Macchio almost died filming those sequences. The production wanted authenticity, so they filmed during high tide when the waves were impressive. The problem was those waves were really impressive. During one take, Macchio was supposed to execute a kick while knee-deep in the surf. A rogue wave, much larger than expected, crashed into him and pulled him under. Macchio couldn't find his footing. The undertow was stronger than anyone anticipated, and for several terrifying seconds he was pulled out. The crew rushed in, yanking him back to the shore before the situation became catastrophic. Production shut down for the rest of the day while everyone recovered from the scare. After that incident, they used a pool for certain water-based shots and were much more careful about tide schedules. Avildsen later admitted that pushing for that level of realism nearly cost them their lead actor. Number 8. Let's address the elephant in the room, or rather the crane on the beach. That final tournament-winning kick that every kid in America spent the next decade trying to copy? Completely impractical in an actual fight. Martial arts experts have pointed this out for years. Standing on one leg, arms spread wide, telegraphing your move to your opponent, it's basically a tutorial on how to get absolutely destroyed in a real confrontation. Any competent fighter would simply sweep your standing leg or punch you in the face while you're posing like a bird. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter. The crane kick isn't about practical fighting technique. It's about a kid who's been beaten down physically and emotionally, finding the courage to stand on one leg and bet everything on a single moment. It's cinema, not a self-defense seminar. The move was actually inspired by a real karate, kata, a formal exercise but heavily dramatized for the film. Morita taught Macchio the stance, and they practiced it extensively to make it look graceful and powerful despite its inherent vulnerability. Number 9.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
You look nice.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Shue's Allie Mills, the beautiful, kind-hearted girl who believes in Daniel when no one else does, almost didn't exist, at least not with Shue playing her. The casting process for Allie was extensive. The producers saw hundreds of young actresses, looking for someone who could be believable as both a rich kid from the hills and someone who'd genuinely fall for a poor kid from New Jersey. It's a delicate balance. Allie needed to be sympathetic, not stereotypical. Shue was relatively unknown at the time, and the studio wanted someone with more name recognition. They pushed for actresses who'd already made splashes in other teen movies. But Avildsen fought for Shue. He saw something authentic in her performance, a warmth that couldn't be faked. The gamble paid off. Shue's performance grounded the movie's romantic subplot, making it feel real rather than forced. Number 10.
You beginner luck.
Imagine the Karate Kid without Pat Morita. Go ahead, try. You can't, right? Morita is Mr. Miyagi. The role and the actor are inseparable, which makes it absolutely insane that he was far from the first choice. The studio wanted someone more conventionally wise old mentor looking. They approached multiple Japanese-American actors, some with more prominent careers than Morita. Every single one of them passed or couldn't commit to the schedule. Here's the real problem. Pat Morita was known as a comedian. He'd played Arnold on Happy Days, done stand-up, and appeared in silly sketches. The studio couldn't see him as a serious, dramatic actor capable of carrying the emotional weight Mr. Miyagi required. They thought audiences would laugh at him rather than with him. Avildsen disagreed. He saw past Morita's comedic reputation and recognized something deeper. The director invited Morita to audition, and what happened next changed cinema history. Morita performed the scene where Miyagi gets drunk on the anniversary of his wife and child's death, revealing the tragedy that shaped him. Number 11. Movies are rarely filmed in chronological order, but The Karate Kid took this to an extreme that made the actor's job significantly harder. Due to the location availability, weather concerns, and scheduling conflicts, Avildsen filmed scenes from the end of the movie before scenes from the beginning. One day, Macchio would be bloodied and exhausted for the tournament finale. The next day, he'd be fresh-faced for Daniel's first day at his new school. This created massive challenges for the actors in terms of emotional continuity. Macchio had to track where Daniel was psychologically in each scene, even when filming them weeks apart and completely out of order. The growth from scared new kid to confident competitor had to be carefully calibrated in his performance, despite the chaotic shooting schedule. Number 12. William Zabka trained in martial arts as a kid, which is why he could perform his own stunts. But he wasn't a black belt or a tournament champion. He was competent, not expert. The plan was to use stunt doubles for the more complex techniques. Then something unexpected happened. Zabka became obsessed with making Johnny Lawrence look legitimately dangerous. By the time they filmed the tournament sequences, Zabka had improved so dramatically that he could perform most of his own fight choreography. That spinning back kick he throws, that's actually him. The speed, the precision, all Zabka's dedication to the craft. Number 13.
There it is, folks, the South Seas. The complex that the 80s movie The Karate Kid was filmed.
Located in Reseda, California, the South Seas Apartments is still standing today, and it looks remarkably similar to how it appeared in the 1984 film, though thankfully the pool is now properly maintained. The apartment complex gained even more attention when it appeared again in the Netflix series Cobra Kai. In one memorable scene from the show, Daniel and Johnny returned to the location during a test drive, discovering it's been modernized and improved over the decades.
Own it?
Yes.
What, did you drive it off the set?
Yeah, I just took it right off the set. No, the head of...
Residents are often annoyed by fans who show up wanting to take photos in front of the old LaRusso household, but that hasn't stopped diehard fans. Number 14.
Scout, and they said, this is kind of the image that we're looking for.
Oh, wow.
Sort of. The brutal no-mercy philosophy John Kreese preaches, that's Hollywood exaggeration. But the dojo itself and the inspiration behind it came from real martial arts schools. The production found a real karate dojo in the San Fernando Valley and dressed it to become Cobra Kai. Local martial artists were hired as extras, and some of the techniques shown are legitimate Tongsudo moves, which is the Korean martial art that Pat Johnson specialized in. More interestingly, the strike first, strike hard, no mercy philosophy, while dramatized, reflects a real approach some martial arts schools took in the 1980s. Competition-focused dojos that emphasized winning above everything else definitely existed. Kamen based Kreese partly on instructors he'd researched who ran their schools like military boot camps. Martin Kove, who played John Kreese, actually studied with real martial arts instructors known for their aggressive teaching styles. Number 15. The crane kick ending is perfect. Daniel, injured and desperate, channels everything Miyagi taught him into one impossible moment and emerges victorious. Triumphant music swells, credits roll, and everyone leaves the theater happy. Except that's not how it was supposed to end. Early drafts on the script had Daniel losing the tournament. The original concept was more realistic. Daniel would fight valiantly but ultimately fall short. The moral victory would be that he'd overcome his fear, earned respect, and found a father figure in Miyagi. He didn't need to win the trophy to win at life. Sounds profound, except test audiences hated it. They invested 2 hours in Daniel's journey, and watching him lose felt like a betrayal. The emotional payoff wasn't there. Number 16. Movie sets are notorious for on-set romances, and The Karate Kid was no exception. But the relationship that developed wasn't between the obvious pair. While everyone assumed Ralph Macchio and Elizabeth Shue might have a thing going, they didn't. Both have stated their relationship was purely professional. Romance bloomed elsewhere on set. Several cast and crew members developed relationships during the intensive shooting schedule. The long days, the emotional intensity of the material, the California sunshine. It created an environment where people grew close. Some of these relationships lasted beyond the production. Others fizzled once filming wrapped and everyone returned to their normal lives. Macchio, in his autobiography, Waxing On, expressed disappointment that Shue did not return for the sequel. Number 17. The scene where Mr. Miyagi gets drunk on the anniversary of his wife and son's death is the emotional core of the entire film. It's when we understand the depth of Miyagi's loss and why he's so invested in protecting Daniel. Morita's performance is devastating. What most people don't know is that Morita drew from his own trauma for that scene. While he didn't lose family in a military camp like Miyagi did, Morita spent part of his childhood in Japanese internment camps during World War II. Morita was just a young child when his family was forcibly relocated. They lost their home, their business, their dignity. The trauma of that experience, being imprisoned by your own country simply for your ethnicity, stayed with Morita his entire life. When Miyagi talks about his wife and son dying while he fought for America in the war, that pain in Morita's voice is real. He's channeling genuine anger and grief about injustice, about racism, about a country that betrayed its own citizens. Number 18.
No point. Flash. Ready. Hey.
Pat Johnson, the martial arts coordinator, made a cameo in the film as one of the tournament referees. But calling him just a martial arts coordinator is like calling Mr. Miyagi just a handyman. Johnson is a legitimate 9th degree black belt in Tang Soo Do and was a member of the U.S. national karate team. He trained Chuck Norris. He worked on Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. The man is a living legend in martial arts circles. Every fight sequence in The Karate Kid was choreographed by Johnson. Every technique had to pass his approval for authenticity. When Macchio performs that crane kick, it's because Johnson taught him the proper stance and execution. When Zabka's kicks look lightning fast, that's Johnson's training. Number 19. Remember how we said the ending was reshot? Here's the rest of that story, and it's wild. The crane kick, the single most iconic moment of the entire franchise, was almost left on the cutting room floor. During editing, some studio executives argued that the crane kick was too unrealistic, too silly, too on the nose. They wanted a more conventional ending where Daniel wins through a series of quick techniques, similar to how real karate tournaments work. Avildsen fought back hard. He understood that audiences needed that visual punctuation mark, that single moment that justified everything we'd watched for the previous 2 hours. The crane kick wasn't just a technique, it was a symbol of Daniel's transformation. Number 20. The Karate Kid wasn't just a successful movie, it fundamentally changed American culture's relationship with martial arts. Before 1984, martial arts schools existed but were relatively niche. After The Karate Kid, they exploded. Dojo enrollments increased by roughly 300% nationwide. Parents who never considered martial arts for their kids suddenly saw it as a path to confidence and self-defense. The film mainstreamed karate specifically and martial arts generally. It made them accessible, aspirational rather than intimidating. Suddenly, every kid wanted to be like Daniel LaRusso. Every parent wanted their child to have a Mr. Miyagi figure in their lives. Beyond the martial arts boom, The Karate Kid influenced action filmmaking. The training montage became a staple. The underdog sports story template got refined. The wise Asian mentor archetype, problematic in some ways but meaningful in others, became standardized. Pat Morita became the first Asian American actor nominated for an Oscar in 22 years. That representation mattered. For Asian American kids growing up in the 1980s, seeing Mr. Miyagi as a hero, wise, strong, respected, was powerful. If you loved this video, if you learned something new, if you're about to go rewatch The Karate Kid for the 100th time, hit that subscribe button right now.